Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So who in here is an entrepreneur? Hands over there. Entrepreneurs, hands way high, way high.
All right.
Okay, so entrepreneurs can do better than that. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good, because we have to be up even when we are feeling down, right? So we're going to start this session off right. So I would like to welcome you to this session, the State of African American Small Businesses, How to Break into Thriving Public and Private Sector Industries and Create Jobs. That's a really fancy title for, we are actually going to just get down and talk about small business and how to succeed. So I'd like to welcome you. Unfortunately, the congressman is not feeling well and is not going to be able to join us, but something that I have learned as the mother of an 18-year-old who just went off to college, when they don't call you and when they can continue on their own, you know that you've done your job. And so we have been here together for many years doing this panel. This is, I think, my fourth year moderating this panel for the congressman. I'm delighted to do it. So we will continue on in his absence. So I would like to ask Senator Booker to make one of our favorite people, of course, from the great state of New Jersey, to make some opening comments on the congressman's behalf and to welcome you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I'm being pulled in a lot of different directions this afternoon, but when Congressman Don Payne told me he was doing this panel, I wanted to be a part of it, especially because he has been a champion for small businesses throughout his entire career. When he and I were both serving as local elected leaders, I was the mayor of the city of Newark, he was the president of the city council. Donald Payne was one of those guys, when we had development projects coming to the city, he's like, look, Corey, we cannot give any tax abatements or anything unless they make a commitment to do business with the local community entrepreneurs. Even when the arena was coming in, one of those people that stood firm with me saying that we want to make sure that local entrepreneurs get businesses within that arena. And so this is a man that has been consistent in his entire career focusing on local businesses, and he doesn't do it as an act of like charity or even loyalty to his local community. He does it because he has the understanding that the more businesses that we can start or help to grow or help to thrive, it has a multiplier effect when it comes to re-empowering our communities. There was a professor at Rutgers who once gave me a book at the beginning of my career. Back then she was not a professor at Rutgers, it was D.T. Ogilvy. And it was by John Sibley Butler, called Black Entrepreneurialism. And she wanted me to read it to understand that for a young man whose career, my entire professional life has been living in a majority minority community, she said to me, read this, man, because you need to understand that when you create wealth within a community, those folks who are making it, they tend to give a charity in their community. They put more money in the church collection plate. They tend to hire folks that they know. And it helps to create, again, that multiplier effect. And so the challenge for America right now is, if you look at demographic trends, is that the businesses that exist right now will not create enough jobs for the people that exist in our country that are going to be needing jobs in the future. That the destiny of our country, the strength of our country is going to be determined by entrepreneurs who are thinking of business ideas right now. And if you think about it, a lot of the businesses that are now name brand businesses, just a decade ago, Instagram or some retailers that you love to go to, Snapchat too, these businesses were not around 5-10 years ago. And then, in fact, of all those people that raise their hands right now, some of you right now are probably thinking of business ideas that are going to help to empower our future. And I'm going to tell you this right now. A lot of the entrepreneurs that are most successful are people that are doing it in the second or third chapter of their lives. It's not always the 20-something-year-olds that are starting businesses. A lot of people that are really making it are people that are like middle-aged folk like me, not like teenagers like her. And so that's the next thing I want you to understand, is that if God is giving you a calling, if the universe is calling you to do something, think about being loyal to that calling. think about being one of those people that actually, this is Don Payne calling, making sure I'm doing a good job. Make sure that you are one of those people that has the kind of faith in yourself and your mission and your vision to pursue that vision. A couple more things, because I said I was going to be brief. Very hard for a lawyer or politician to be brief in anything. But I really want to talk to those people here that are really wanting to start and grow their businesses, to give you a few things that I've learned along the way. First is, stop thinking it's you against the world. There are a lot of organizations that are aligned to try to help and support you to grow, to gain experience, to benefit from theirs. Please understand that one of the reasons why we're doing this, or why Don sought to do this, is to help people understand what resources are out there for you. Jill's one of the people that I used to call all the time when I was mayor, because she started an organization that was focusing on helping women entrepreneurs be successful. And she has a whole bunch of success stories, but also knows a lot of the resources. Me as senator, I went through all throughout the state of New Jersey just trying to talk to businesses, small businesses, about some of the everyday challenges that you all have. Like, how do you access capital in this economy where banks often are loaning less and less, and often are not loaning in a way that reflects the diversity of our communities. So there are a lot of answers out there. There's a lot of help out there that I'm hoping that you can avail yourself. Number two is learn from other models. Everything that I've wanted to do in my life, I'm not kidding, everything I wanted to do, I tried to find models for me of excellence and learn everything I can from them so that I could succeed. Even when I was playing football at Stanford, I was a freshman, I looked, who's the best wide receiver on this team? It was a guy named Jeff James, ended up being a 4th-round draft pick. I made a study out of Jeff James. What is he doing? How does he lift? What's he eat at the training table? I watched and studied him everywhere, except obviously not in the shower. That would have been weird. But everything that I learned, and it bled over to other things, even in school. I got to Stanford University because of a 4.0, 1600. 4.0 yards per carry, 1,600 receiving yards. I got there because I was a good football player. But I wanted to compete in the classroom, so what did I do? I found people that were great students and studied them. We disempower ourselves when we think that other people have some kind of God-given talent that we don't have. Most of success comes out of habits and discipline. That these folks have different habits and disciplines that they have honed over time that makes them successful. There's nobody out there, I'm telling you, there's people with less talent than you, not as smart as you are, not as quick with numbers as you are, that have incredibly successful businesses because of their work ethic, their discipline, their ability to network and be successful. So I'm going to wrap up right there by just letting you know that I urgently believe we are at a crisis point in our country. Because at 2044, the year 2044, the majority of our nation will be minority. Think about this for a second. There'll be no more majority in our country. Blacks won't be the majority, whites won't be the majority, Latinos won't be the majority. It'll be a diverse nation. But the problem we have right now is that we're leaving on the sidelines in disproportionate ways people of color and women, that they're not in the game. We as a country will begin to fail if we don't find a way to better cultivate the greatest natural resource that our country has, and that is the genius of our people. If we are leaving large percentages of women and minorities on the sideline in every area, from the sciences, from math to professorships, PhDs, we're not going to succeed. In one area in which we're underperforming is black and women entrepreneurs. And that's where you all come in. I'm going to use my position to fight in every way possible. I'm going to call folks out like VC firms that give such a small percentage of their angel investing to minorities and to women. I'm going to push legislation like I have. My staff gave me a whole bunch of the things I've done to read off. You all don't need to hear that. Know that I'm fighting with the Small Business Administration, pushing them on loan programs, trying to create business accelerators in the state of New Jersey and around our country. A lot of things. But at the end of the day, those 10 two-letter words about this world, if you want something to change, you got to remember the 10 two-letter words. If it is to be, it is up to me. And so if you have a dream, if you have a vision for being an entrepreneur, that's in your heart for some reason. Be loyal to it. Obey the commands of your heart and pursue them with a dogged determination. become obsessed with it. Because remember, I got a curse. It's in this curse is in her quote. But it was Alice Walker who said, if you want to fly, you got to give up the shit that holds you down. Most people want something without giving something up. They're not willing to do what other people do to be successful, to go some sleepless nights, to wake up earlier than other people, to put in the extra effort, to stop watching so much TV because that can be time that you're marketing your product, to stop eating foods that make you go to bed feeling sick because you need your energy. So what I'm saying to you right now is I'm going to do everything I can, and if I don't, people like Jill will put the pressure on me. But my prayer is that you all follow the commands and the dictates of your heart, because your dreams are there for a reason, to push you to go further and farther. And then the last thing I'll say, I'm stepping away from the microphone already as I'm saying it, don't be one of those people that gets successful and doesn't remember that you have an obligation to turn around and help somebody else. I'll call you out. Don't be one of those people that gets successful, is not willing to come to Donald Payne Jr.'s panel to talk about your success and your road forward. Don't be one of those people that doesn't try to mentor another entrepreneur to do something, because we need each other. We all didn't get here alone. We all got here because somebody helped us. Thank you, everybody. Yes. I might have to run, so we're going to take our selfie now, if you all don't mind. This is very important. She and I have been friends for a long time. She gets better looking. I get. Who said worse? Y'all terrible.
Thank you,
you.
Senator.
Thank you.
Let's give the Senator a round of applause. And, when he said that he is in our corner as small business owners, he means it. So, and I've seen that firsthand. He didn't tell, like he usually does, kind of his own story and his family's story about entrepreneurship. And many of you might know that Congressman Payne also comes from a family of entrepreneurs. So that is why this is really near and dear to their hearts. It's not something that they do just for political reasons. It is because it really is in their blood. So now, without further ado, let's get on to why we're all here, to meet these wonderful panelists who are here to share their stories and to share not only the good things, but some of the challenges that they've had, and to hopefully inspire some of you to go on to greater success as well. So before I do that, just a few housekeeping things. If everyone can turn off their cell phones or turn the ringers off so we're not interrupted. There are questions that are in your packets. Cards that are in your packets. You will use those cards to ask questions. If you have a question, write it down. Someone will be around to pick up the cards, and then we'll read them here from the podium. All right? Terrific. Let's see. Now I have to work this as well. Okay, so let me just tell you a few things about myself. I am the moderator here. As I said, I've been doing this for 4 years, and the Congressman and I first met in Newark, where I started an organization called the Institute for Entrepreneurial Leadership. Our focus is in connecting entrepreneurs with the knowledge, networks, and capital that you need to succeed. What we found is that a lot of people focus just on the capital, but really, when you have the knowledge and the networks, getting capital is actually a lot easier. We have multiple programs. We have a program called Workshop on Business Opportunities. That's a 16-week training program. We have a business plan competition. There is information on the seats about that business plan competition. The prize is $10,000. You're all welcome to enter. It's not just for people in New Jersey. We have mentoring and a co-working space. And our focus is in helping entrepreneurs like you to grow. So please take down my email address is there. The email address for all the panelists will be up there. Please take it down. We encourage all of you to contact us to get help. As the Senator said, we are here to support. So without further ado, let's meet our panelists. They're first going to get 3 minutes to talk about their story and to tell you why they're passionate about what it is they do. So our panelists are, and let's give them each a round of applause as they're introduced. Miko Branch from Miss Jessie's LLC. Spencer Lindsay from Mr. Mars Premium Sauces. Victoria Harris from DC Taste Buds. And James Jimmy Williams from McDonald's Corporation. He's an owner and operator. Okay, so why don't we start down on this end with you, Miko?
Thank you, Jill. So my name is Miko Branch, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Miss Jessie's, the natural hair care company that I started together with my sister Titi Branch. We originally opened our business in 1997, and we opened our business with no money, no angel investors, no special contacts. But what we did have was our God-given talent. Titi was always a great organizer, a great communicator, and I was always naturally good at doing hair. Together we pulled our talents and became one, and we opened up our first two-chair salon in the Boerum Hill section of Brooklyn. Within a month, we made a profit, and we decided that we liked what we were doing and we were going to stay the course. Rookies in business, after being in business for around a year, Titi and I decided to expand our business very quickly. We decided to get a salon that was 3 times the size, 3 times the rent, and what a wonderful experience for us because we failed. We failed very early on in our career, and we understood that growing quickly was something that we needed to pay attention to. Those early experiences of failure served us later when partners like Target, Walmart, CVS, and Sally's called to sell eventually our product that we made at our kitchen table very early on in the 2000s. I'm a single parent, a proud one, and right after we lost our business, I realized that I was having a baby. I realized that Dad wasn't going to be around, so I needed to create a way for us to make money, pay our mortgage. I was paying attention to the next opportunity. My opportunity came at bath time with my son. Splash time, I could no longer wear my hair styled straight, and I realized that I had to embrace my natural giving curls. At the same time, women were talking on websites. They were called chat rooms at the time. And I realized that that was an opportunity. Titi and I took to our kitchen table. We created product from scratch. We did it at our kitchen table. We learned mixing and creating stuff from our grandmother, and eventually we became a very successful business, and you can find our products in Target, Walmart, Walgreens, and CVS. Thank you. Time's up.
And Spencer, I know you have a video. Should we play the video first?
No, we'll do that one last. We'll do it after my little speech.
Okay, so why don't you go ahead next?
Hello, everyone. My name is Spencer Maurice Lindsay III. I am the owner and CEO, the founder and CEO of Mr. Mars. Mr. Mars is a premium sauce company that provides that one-of-a-kind flavor that all walks of life can savor.
You practiced that, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I did practice that one. So I'm going to give you guys a quick story of how I got started. It's a very unique story, and my story is pretty much the success on Amazon campus. So I am a part-time worker on Amazon campus at the Seattle's headquarters. I work 3 days a week, and on the side, I started making my barbecue sauce professionally. Why? As a security specialist on campus, security wanted to throw a potluck, like a team bonding potluck, and just to have fun outside of work. We chose Golden Gardens. Golden Gardens is a park on the waterfront that everybody just agreed on, going, and it's centrally located for everyone. So I brought my honey barbecue wings with my specialty barbecue sauce. Before it was even named Mr. Mars, it was just my own local, just fun barbecue sauce. Everybody devoured it. The potluck started 15, 20 minutes into the potluck, and my 5-pound bowl of barbecue chicken wings were gone. People just wanted more of it. People wanted the recipe. I'm like, if it's that serious, I think I should, make this legit. So, my wheels started turning, and I came up with a name. I actually initially I didn't have an actual recipe. What I had was, I call it dump sauce, to where you don't measure anything. You kind of like, okay, this sounds good, that sounds good, throw a little of that. So, and then, perfect, that sounds good. So I was like, okay, I need to get an actual recipe, I have to be consistent, and a name. So I was like, how am I gonna get the name? Mr. Mars is the name I came up with eventually. I started off with my middle name. My middle name is Maurice. I was like, I wanted the name to be me, but I wanted it to be a simple but catchy name. Something, household. So I took my middle name and I kind of modified it, and I said Mars, I'm like, I kind of like Mars. My middle name is Maurice. So when I said Mars, I'm like, it kind of sounds like the planet, but spelled differently. Let's see what I can do. So I went to go see if the domain was available, and it wasn't. Somebody already had that domain. I'm like, back to the drawing board. So I had a prefix of Mr. in front of it. A lot of people in high school and grade school, my first name is Spencer, my last name is Lindsay. So I had like a first name, last name, two names. People didn't know if I was Lindsay or Spencer, so they'll call me Mr. Spencer instead of Mr. Lindsay. Anyway. So I put Mr. in front of Mars, and I said, Mr. Mars. I'm like, let me do some role play. Hey, babe, can you go in the fridge and grab me a jar of Mr. Mars? I like how that sounds, So I went and, and see if the domain was available, and it was. So I quickly, claimed that name, and that was the dawn of Mr. Mars. So fast forward, on campus, on Amazon campus, fastly my name was getting around. Like, this guy has some amazing barbecue sauce. You gotta try it. So I started selling on Amazon.com, and I started talking to an Amazon employee that used to come into my building frequently, and I gave her, she used to talk about the skeleton that was behind me that was sold on Amazon Marketplace. And basically what happened was she talked to some people, and fast forward, I was on Seattle Times, Jeff Bezos tweeted about me, I went to New York, to ring NASDAQ bell, and now I'm here with you guys. So that's how it all started. Here is the minute documentary about myself. I'm running around on Amazon's campus as the barbecue sauce guy. Have a good one. Thank you, Brittany. I grew up not financially stable, and I didn't want my daughter to grow up like that. I knew that I just wanted to make my own barbecue sauce, and I had a couple of ingredients in mind, so I gave it a go. So this is my Mr. Mars original premium barbecue sauce. The secret stuff. Don't tell anybody. And my slogan is flavor out of this world. I figured, what is a good way to sell? I initially wanted to do it Fulfilled by Amazon because they do that well.
We take care of the customer service, we store it, we pick and pack and ship the product to the customer. And again, me as a business person, just focusing on my business and making the product better.
Business is great. For me, being on Amazon, the whole world has capability of buying my products. So it means everything to me, it really does. I want to be the best role model for my daughter that I can be. Showing that I am motivated and have the will to open up my own business. If she can at least take part of that and bring it into her life when she grows up, that'll be a blessing.
That was a great video, Spencer. Thank you.
मेरे फादर हैं जो वो काफ़ी हार्ड वर्किंग हैं और वो मेरे लिए सब कुछ करते हैं जब कभी भी मैं अपने फादर को स्ट्रेस में देखती हूँ तो मुझे पता होता है कि वो फाइनेंस के कारण है, लेकिन वो मुझे कभी नहीं पता लगने देती। मैंने कहा कि वो स्ट्रेस में होता है कि घर का खर्चा कैसे पूरा होगा।
मैं और पिछले 10 साल से रिटेल का ही काम करता था और अपने घर का खर्चा वगैरह बड़ी मुश्किल से चलता था। अमेरिकन का प्रोग्राम के बारे में अपने दोस्तों से पता चला, मैंने जब डिस्कस की तो मैंने सारे जनों ने सपोर्ट किया तो करना चाहिए, तो मैंने ज्वाइन किया।
अलग इनकम से बहुत बार आ रही है, इससे हमारे घर के खर्चे में सुधार होता है।
जैसे कभी पीक टाइम आता है तो पार्सल्स काफ़ी बढ़ जाते हैं, तो उसमें हमारा इनकम भी काफ़ी बढ़ जाती है। और 6 महीने उनके साथ काम करते हैं।
Push very hard to change that and to bring as many people into the fold as possible. I'm an entrepreneur. I never wanted to open a business. Like, if you asked me 2 years ago if I was going to open a business, I would have told you no. My specialty is actually making other people's businesses better. I'm usually the second hire. I'm the second in command. I'm the one that gets your business up and going, and I'm the one that helps you. I'm the plug. I connect dots for you. I find out what needs we have, and I find someone that can fulfill those needs and get people jobs. That was my specialty until my business partner bought the trademark and said, we're going to go ahead and do this. It's exciting to do this in DC, as DC is still Chocolate City, and you know, in terms of states that have decriminalized cannabis, or that have like a legal recreational or medicinal market, this is about as black of a city you're going to get. And if there's going to be an edible company, you know, making food-grade quality edibles for medicinal marijuana patients, then I think someone with a culinary degree and someone of color should be doing it in the city. So that's my spiel.
And last but certainly not least, Jimmy Williams.
Jill, thank you so much. And after listening to, and first of all, let me say thank you to Congressman Donald Payne. Thank you to Senator Cory Booker. Certainly the panel here has been amazing. I took a couple of notes on it, and I will say to you that small business is an incubator of sorts. It's an incubator for innovation. It's an incubator for job creation. And with job creation, also entry-level jobs. And so very, very, very important to our communities. And so my story, and how does that fit in? I'm a son of the city of East St. Louis, Illinois. And I dare say it's a little bit darker than Washington, D.C. As a 16-year-old boy, my father, and I mentioned to him I wanted a job, and I marched down to, my father took me down to the East St. Louis McDonald's. And I knew this gentleman because he was a stalwart in our community, but his name was Dr. Ben Davis, an African-American dentist, an amazing gentleman. He hired me, and I learned so much about him. And I thought about what Senator Booker said about, you know, what it takes to be successful in business. Money aside, he taught me so many other things. Intelligence aside, he taught me so many different things. Hard work aside, he taught me so many different things that propelled me through college, propelled me through the Navy. I became a naval officer right after college, and I flew planes for the Navy for 8 years. And I came full circle back to McDonald's.
That's my first job.
And I became an owner of the McDonald's in East St. Louis, Illinois. Now I own 18 stores. But the store I'm most proud of is the store in East St. Louis, Illinois. It's my hometown. I could walk from my house to that store. And now I drive by my old house every day, and I go to that store every day. We hosted the CEO of McDonald's a couple of weeks ago, and the president of McDonald's. And that's the store I go to each and every day. I will tell you, I read about Black Wall Street and other books about black entrepreneurship. And I know we have to start turning these dollars over more and more in our communities. Over 29 million businesses, small businesses in the U.S. 47% of our GDP is small business. 1.9 million businesses are African American. They do about $600,000 in sales a year. We got to get better, and we got to do better. So looking forward to this conversation that we're going to have over the next 2 hours. So excited about that.
So let me just ask a couple questions of the audience. So how many of you all, again, show of hands, how many of you are already in business? How many people are thinking about starting a business, interested in starting a business? Okay, so most of you here in business already. Just shout out, what are some of the main challenges that you have with your business? What's that? Expansion. Anything else? Capital. Regulations. Talent. Okay. Anything else? Okay, so let's make sure we include those things in our conversation. So first, actually, I want to address the issue of scale. And so many people think that they want to create this business and create a big business, and you know the push is always to grow faster and faster and faster. And Miko, you talked about the challenge in growing too quickly. Talk a little bit more about that and how you then pulled back to manage that growth better.
Right. Very early on, as I mentioned to you before, my sister and I grew too quickly, and we ended up losing our business. It was a successful two-chair salon, but it was a very painful experience. The timing of it was horrible because I was also expecting. But, I mean, there was something really wonderful about that experience. And that wonderful thing was manageable steps was the way we needed to approach our business. Luckily, Titi and I stayed the course, so we were around to get that call from Target, from Walgreens, from CVS. So when it came time for Target and Walmart to invite us in, we decided that we were going to tap into that early experience and grow into the business slowly. So if Target has 2,000 stores or 1,700 stores, Titi and I thought it would be good for us to gradually grow into that business. So our initial, the initial doors we showed up in were 200 stores. So with that, we were able to build our capital, reinvest that money back into our business without partnering up with someone. Titi and I were raised by a dad who thought it was very important for us to be our own bosses. Partnering up and getting investor money in our family was code word for us turning into employees. So we were trying to avoid that. In order for us to keep ownership, we had to build slowly but surely. It took us around 10 years to build our business, but at the end of the day, when the real profits came in, we were able to keep every bit of it. But growing slowly, taking manageable steps, taking manageable bites as we learn the business. Titi and I were excellent at making curly pudding at our kitchen table. We were excellent at styling hair. But as our business grew, we had to learn the ways of Target, Walmart, Walgreens, and CVS. So that education that we were experiencing as we were growing our business was very challenging. But again, the manageable approach to our business helped us to keep our shirts on. So basically, that's how we did it, in manageable bites.
Miko, how did you go from making it in your kitchen to actually, I'm assuming now you are not still making it in your kitchen?
Not still making it in our kitchen. We had a brownstone, still have a brownstone in the Bedford-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn, and we used every single floor. We started off in Titi's apartment, then we moved it down to our kitchen table on the first floor, and then eventually we needed help and we mixed in our basement and had full production. We mixed in our basement till we couldn't mix anymore. Our back started hurting, and that was the moment where we decided that we needed to get help. So we hired more and more people, then we ended up moving to a warehouse. We outgrew that business, the orders kept coming in, and it was clear to us that we needed to outsource the business and have someone make it for us. The key to that was ownership again. Ownership is so important because Titi and I owned our formulations. So when it came time for us to outsource that business, we were able to shop and get the best price. If we didn't like the business we were doing, we were able to bring that business somewhere else. So when it came time to make that move, that ownership component of our business was very important. And when we did it, we were able to do it seamlessly.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jimmy, I'd like to come to you now on scaling. I was mentioning to you earlier, I read an article in 2010 and said you had 5 stores and now you have 18 stores. That's a lot of growth in a relatively short period of time. Talk to us about how you did that and how you managed that.
Absolutely. My story is not dissimilar to yours, and I'll say, don't be afraid of failure. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with failure. There's nothing wrong with trying out here each and every day. When we talk about skill in small business, I think one of the things that's overlooked is this. I know that ultimately I'm not in the hamburger business. I'm in the people business. And the better job I do at developing my people, the better able I'm going to be to scale. The better job I do in putting systems and structures in place, the better I'm going to be able to be scalable. And so when I had one store, it was very important for me not necessarily to be that all-encompassing manager. I needed to develop someone. When I got two, not only did I need to develop a couple of people, I also had to develop a supervisor. Because I knew ultimately I wanted to be a big franchisee with McDonald's. Remember, I wanted to be like Dr. Ben Davis. And he was the most successful franchisee in the St. Louis area. Whether he was black or white or whatever, he was one of the most successful African-American entrepreneurs, one of the most successful McDonald's franchisees in the area. And he had a staff that you wouldn't believe. And that's what I wanted. And so later on, I'm going to talk about something else, having a mentor and having a sponsor, because those things are so very important. And what Senator Booker talked about in giving back. Well, right now, I have a young man working with me, Roy Mosley, young man who was in the pharmaceutical business, and he's training with me to become a McDonald's franchisee. So I have to do the same thing for him than he did for me. And that's another part of scaling. Because I'm sure if Doc Davis was here today, he would say to me, he's very proud of the fact that I have 18 units. He had 6 units. Equally, he would say, I'm most proud that you got somebody coming from behind, which is Roy Mosley. And so that's all a part of skill, too.
Thank you. Jimmy, talk to us a little bit, I'm sorry, Jimmy, Spencer. Talk to us about how you again, were making the sauce in your home, in your kitchen, and then you went to, it looks like a commercial kitchen in your video, and how you're using an outsourced back end to scale your business.
So like you said, I initially started at my home. That's when it was just the local thing, only for the family and friends. Eventually, I got into a commercial kitchen. To scale up even more, I have initial resource where he has his industrial kitchen that he makes sauces out of his industrial kitchen. I'm currently in the phases of doing 2 things. One is get my own distribution and manufacturing facility, and also open up my own wing shop on Amazon campus. Doing those 2 things, it's basically time, money, and money management. That's basically what it is. I already have my crew in place, basically time. But, any other question? That's it.
All right, that's good, that's good. Let's talk for a minute about human capital, because I heard that is a challenge out there, and it's something that everybody faces. Victoria, you talked about being that number 2 person oftentimes. Tell us a little bit more about that and how having that number 2 is really essential to growing and scaling the business.
It's huge. Like your number 2 hire is can make or break you, which is why I realized that I was good at it. When I moved down here and I opened the food shop with just one other person. It was just me and him, for like a year and some change, just us doing everything. And I realized how valuable that position is because, even though you haven't put any equity, any real money into a business, if you've helped someone start it, you're still a co-founder. I mean, you helped grow that business and you take on the weight of, because you don't have the financial, liabilities. You become like an entrepreneur. You help them, but that's still your baby too. You've helped grow this business. You've been a part of this business since day one. And, once you get someone emotionally invested in their business, and because it's not just yours, it becomes like your customers. Your brand becomes like, it doesn't just belong to you anymore. And I think that why the businesses that I've worked with, I'm all for referrals. I think, if I refer someone to work for, someone that I know professionally, it's because I can vouch for them professionally. I work with them myself, or I know someone that's worked with them themselves, because when you use a referral-based system, you're not just you're getting people that are also responsible for that other person that referred you. So they're like, if I screw you over, I'm also making my friend that looks bad that got me this job. And I think when hiring, there's a lot to be said about not just looking at what degrees people have or what their resume says. It's about are they hungry, and can they, do they really want this job? The jobs that I've worked for, I really want this job, and we don't know each other for Adam, so I'm going to stage, which basically means work for free. I'm going to throw this event for you, and if you don't like this event, if it doesn't go successful, then you don't have to hire me. And if you do, you give me a $2,000 starting bonus, right? I mean, there are a lot of other more qualified applicants than me, but I was hungry and I wanted to do their work, and I was ready to invest in the company, and it wasn't just a job. I wanted to grow with the company. I think looking at that over this is DC, everybody can write a resume. But can you get down in the kitchen and actually do the work is a better indicator for me. So yeah, ask people, talk to people. Social equity, in my experience, means more than real equity in this city, particularly if you really need something, if you need good people to work for you. Ask people hey, do you know anyone that's interested in so-and-so? Because a text message can completely change the trajectory of your hiring process if you just reach out and ask people for help.
Mm-hmm. Miko, talk to us about working with family. That can be the greatest thing in the world, but it can also present some challenges, as some of you all might know. Talk to us a little about that.
I had a wonderful experience working with my sister, Titi. There was a big sister, little sister dynamic in play. Titi was the big sister. We were latchkey kids, and Titi always held the key. So I was always very reliant on Titi. I trusted her word. I deferred to Titi in so many different instances. As Titi and I got further into our partnership, I realized that I no longer had the luxury of doing the things that I only loved, which was doing hair. I realized that I had to pitch in many different ways because Titi and I, we were new to business. So I had to acquaint myself with all aspects of our business. Sometimes I didn't want to do it, but at the end of the day, I had to do it. I had to become an equal partner to Titi. So what that did was that changed the dynamic between our big sister, little sister relationship. Titi liked very much being the big sister. So now when I'm questioning Titi and her processes, sometimes we had big fights over stuff like that. And family business can be very challenging. Who's doing what? Who's doing how much, who's getting paid what. Luckily, Titi and I were 50-50 partners, but eventually Titi and I, not only were we business partners, we were co-parenting, we were best friends, we were roommates, we were so many different things to one another, and we never had a moment to get away from each other. So when we would go to work, sometimes we would have the biggest fights, but we would have to put that aside and keep business going. And those were some of our very challenging moments. I would say definitely in family businesses, love is the key. Sometimes you don't have the answer to how to figure this dilemma out, but if there's love there, that'll certainly settle most dilemmas. I'm so fortunate I had the partnership of Titi Branch. I wouldn't be the Miss Jessies, we wouldn't be the Miss Jessies we are without that partnership. So I encourage more family business.
So I just want to jump on there and add to that, that it is certainly about love. It can definitely help, though, when you clearly delineate who is doing what and who is responsible for what, and then you give each other that space.
Absolutely, but as new jacks to business, young ladies in business, we weren't really sure. We weren't really sure who was going to do what. So in business, particularly as an entrepreneur, that's a very dynamic experience. It's ever changing. I went into business thinking that I was going to do beautiful hair all day, and then I became a great negotiator. And Titi might have thought of herself as a great negotiator. So what I'm saying is just accept and be open to the change in business, and then sooner or later you'll be able to define the different roles. But as you're figuring it out, it can be challenging because we have to understand we're human beings, we have egos, we like our jobs, and sometimes we don't want those jobs taken away from us. So it's an overall experience that you certainly are going to have to embrace. And stay the course, because on those tough days, there's certainly another day to follow with sunshine. So just stay the course.
She's so positive, which is a beautiful thing. Just a reminder, if you have questions, please write them on the note cards, and we'll have someone come around and pick them up so we can start answering some of your questions. Let's talk for a minute about failure. And I'm going to go down the line here because I'm sure that everyone, well, Miko, you already answered that question, talked a little bit about your failure. Spencer, any failure yet?
My biggest failures was before my company was actually a true company. I started off with just one type of barbecue sauce, Mr. Mars Premium Original Barbecue Sauce. I knew that wasn't going to be enough. I knew that wasn't going to be enough. I wanted to have more than just one type of barbecue sauce, one sauce, period. So I started, creating more sauces, trying to create more sauces. And my troubles that I came across was I'm a perfectionist. So when something isn't perfect how I want it to be, especially how the taste I want it to taste like, it's trash. Basically, that sauce is trash. So my failures was spending 3-4 months on trying to create this perfect sauce that never happened. I have a total of 8 different sauces now, successful sauces now. Probably like 4 or 5 other sauces that I tried and wasted time and money. I wouldn't say wasted, learning experiences that I went through. So I guess those would be my biggest failures. Failures out front now, I'm kind of up on an uprise, so nothing really occurred now, but I'm pretty sure things will happen. I'm pretty sure.
Well, that's definitely a lesson, trying to make things perfect, and those folks that are used to overachieving. And sometimes you have to get it out the door, because when you keep trying to make it perfect, sometimes it never gets going.
Yes.
Jimmy, talk to us about a failure.
Great question, and I have a lot of failures, so let me put that out front. I have a lot of failures. Business isn't a matter of being perfect. And so each and every day, I encounter things, I encounter people, and things don't work out as I might wish. Certainly when I first started the business, before I got my first McDonald's, and when I was in the training program, after I got out of the Navy, I had to take a step back. I moved in with my mother for 8 years. I put every single penny I had into this business. And each and every day, I drove a 1986 Z28 Camaro to work. Some days it worked pretty well, and some days it didn't. But I had to sacrifice a lot, and I put sacrifice and failure in a way together to get to the dream that I want to get to. And I also had to put some things aside. Family, for instance. I put aside getting married and things like that, and thank God my wife stayed with me. Ultimately, each and every day with people. I can't hire every day the best possible person. I'm an entry job provider in many of the areas that I have restaurants. Now, what does that mean? That means I have to do a little bit more, and I have to put a little bit more into those individuals who come. One day I came to work at one of my units, and a young lady walked in and had house shoes on and pajama bottoms, and she came in to apply for a job. And it would have been easy for me to say, you can't work for me. That's not what we want at McDonald's. But you know what? As an entry job provider, I couldn't do that. Can't do it. I gave her a shot. She's still with me. Now, I've had some situations where it hasn't quite worked out. At my downtown store, I've hired 4 homeless individuals. Nowhere to go. Others wouldn't hire. Some have worked out, some haven't. And so each and every day in the restaurant business, you have the ups and downs. It's called a grind. I grind it out every day. Our founder was Ray Kroc, and he wrote an interesting book The book was called Grinding It Out, and he's right. It hasn't gotten any easier since the first day I started. Every single day, I have to grind it out.
Wow. So talk a little bit about the people who didn't work out, and how did you feel when you had to let them go and tell them it wasn't working out?
As a businessman too, at the end of the day, I have to make decisions on the health of the business. And if someone isn't coming to work or not coming to work on time, if someone's conduct is unbecoming, then I have to make a decision for the betterment of the business. And so I don't think it's harsh. I don't think it's harsh. The chance was given. In fact, the second chance was given. But at some point, if things aren't moving in the right direction, you have to move on. But I also know, again, growing up in East St. Louis, that I've got to give that chance because someone gave me that chance. And it could be argued that the reason why Doc Ben Davis hired me was because my father, former mayor of the city, president of the school board, Sunday school teacher, et cetera, he was going to hire me. He gave me a shot because equally, I know that I have to give other individuals a shot. Maybe their father wasn't the mayor, or maybe he wasn't president of the school board or what have you. But if I give him the shot, who knows what's going to happen? And so ultimately, yeah, we can call it failure. I'll call it opportunity. And, they're both the same thing, right? We all need that opportunity.
Someone told me a long time ago that when someone isn't doing their job, oftentimes they're just wondering when you're going to fire them and how long it's going to take.
Or it could be looked at a different way. When they're not doing their job, why? What are they crying out for, right? Do they really know? What was their background, et cetera? And so, sometimes you have to do a deep dive. You really have to do a deep dive because you can find some wonderful people out there. It's interesting in the military, and I tell my friends, we have something called the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery Test. And if you look at that test, and the guys who generally do the best on it go into the Air Force. And then we could argue the Navy, the Army, the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps probably, at the end of the day, doesn't do as well on the members on the ASVAB. However, at the end of 2 years, it could be argued they have the best soldier. So a lot of it comes down to training. How do we train and what are we willing to put into the individual? And I love the Marine Corps, I love the Navy because they're willing to put so much into the individual. Training matters. It really does. And so I have to look beyond the superficial in many ways. I've got to try to do something a little bit different. And the reason why is I'm an entry job provider in many ways. And so McDonald's in general, and again, I'm a franchisee, so we're all different. But we all hold one thing in common. We believe in education, we believe in training. We have the most renowned training system that you could have in the restaurant business. In addition to that, for the employees that we have something called Archways to Opportunity. And so we give out meaningful scholarships just for coming to work for us, 3 months. If you come to work for us for 3 months, we're willing to give you that scholarship to go to a junior college, to go and get that high school degree, English as a second language, et cetera. For that manager, we're willing to give even more money to go and get that degree. I have a young man in East St. Louis, Devon, who's working on his master's degree, and he's getting free money from McDonald's to do it. So I'm certainly appreciative of that. So again, digging a little bit deeper with individuals is very important. It really is very important. And so I try not to give up on anyone. At some points, you're right, Jill, I have to let a person go. But that's the nature of the business in McDonald's. We're an entry job provider. Turnover is going to be high.
And the nature of any business, and that's why you have to make the tough decisions.
Absolutely.
Victoria, talk to us about opportunities in the cannabis industry. I actually had the opportunity to do a workshop for a cannabis industry group in New York City. And what was really interesting was the fact that when you look at the fact that cannabis is what has led to the incarceration of so many people of color. But when you actually look now at the cannabis industry and the people who are leading the charge and the ones who are positioned to make all of the money, they are not people of color.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about the opportunities that exist and some things that maybe people here should think about.
You're right. This industry was built on the backs of people of color and women, and they have suffered the burden of it. And it's particularly like a smack in the face in DC, because you could really take, it's a chance for generational financial stability that I think is like snatched from people because of their previous experience with cannabis. Opportunities. There are opportunities, but it is hard. It is really, really, I cannot say hard enough. It is very, very difficult to enter the cannabis industry. I'm fortunate that I met a lot of really amazing women, one being Dr. Shonda Macias, who's one of 2 Black women in this country who own a dispensary. In Washington, she's actually in Washington, D.C. and has the #1 dispensary in this market. And she's been like a great mentor to me. I've had a lot of like women of color they're the only reason I was allowed access to this space is because of women of color. And that's not an overstatement. That's the facts. They have helped me. They've introduced me to the right people, put me in the right spaces, told me what to say and what to not say, because it's an incredibly cutthroat industry. Even though, like I tell people, oh, I'm in culinary and cannabis, like it sounds a lot more chill than it actually is. It's very, very cutthroat. It's a high risk, high reward industry. But there's tons of opportunities, particularly on, like there's so many other businesses that, I'm technically a culinary business. On paper, I'm a culinary business. I consult cannabis businesses on how to make food products. And I create their HACCP plans. I create their operations plans. My business partners and myself will, can scale very easily. We make edibles a lot easier to do for them. But that was figuring that out. We kind of just jumped off a cliff and built the plane on the way down, like hoping that this idea would work. But if you have a talent like in tech particularly, the cannabis industry needs a lot of help on the tech front. If you are really into helping create policy, if you want to get engaged in that conversation, it's about figuring out what talent you have and how to apply it to an avenue in the cannabis space. Because if you have a license, that allows you access on one level, but if you don't, you got to figure out how to let them in, how to get yourself in. And it's not money doesn't really I have so many people in my inbox oh, I want to get involved. I'm an investor. No one in the cannabis industry needs your money. That's not how you're going to be able to enter. The only way you're going to be able to enter is if someone brings you in and kind of shows you the ropes. It took me 1 year and 8 months to have a conversation with just 4 different people. It took 1 year and 8 months to have those 4 separate conversations to reach those people, to get to these avenues to even contact them, which blows my mind. It's a huge hurdle, but I'm excited. I don't want to scare anyone from entering the industry, but just know, it may be 2 years before your dream or your idea comes to fruition. If you're not okay with that, then this isn't the space for you.
But it is an area where there is an opportunity to get in on the ground floor.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And there are too many of these industries now that we tend to get into after the bubble actually has already been made and after it's, when it's about to burst.
Absolutely. I mean, I got into, it made sense. It was just, the only reason I opened this business is because I was helping someone else do a cannabis nonprofit, and I basically said, I'm not building another person's business without equity. And they said, oh, well, you can make your own business, and then we can just trade equity or something, as if it was, I wouldn't do it. And so then the next week, that's why we opened the business. We did it because in culinary world, it's so rare that you can do something that hasn't been done yet. And I realized that, hey, I have a culinary degree. I'm good at marketing. My business partners, unbeknownst to me, because they've both been my clients, and I've also worked for both of them, so we all have a very healthy working relationship. Both of them were into cannabis at some point in their life, and they were down to do it. And figuring out the right team and figure out the right way to approach it. I wouldn't have done it by myself if my one business partner wasn't able to scale up, 500,000 units of whatever product he makes every month. I wouldn't have done it if my other business partner wasn't amazing at economics and also happens to be a cancer patient and gives us like really great insight on what kind of products we should actually be making. I wouldn't have done it. It's about getting the right team together and figuring out what assets you have that the cannabis industry is missing. And it just takes a lot of research. But like, if you want to get in, like, now is the time. Like, get in on the ground floor, but realize that it's a lot of work.
But that's an amazing point that you made, that it really wasn't as much about the passion as it really was about figuring out the value that you
Yeah,
could
it
provide
just made
in
sense.
the industry and to the market.
Absolutely. It wasn't so much like, oh, I really want to make edibles, It was just like, this just makes sense. No one's doing it. People need edibles. Like, they outsell flowers 2 to 1, in most markets on the West Coast. There are people in DC, there are kitchens available in these grow centers. Like, there's got to be a way that we can do it. And they need culinary talent to be able to scale quickly. And it was just figuring that out and getting those conversations, those dialogues going, and getting some press. So that people would know who we are, and being able to control our narrative 100%, because when you are in cannabis, you don't have the luxury of like people assuming anything about you. You have to control your narrative from start to finish. I'm medicinal. I've given away at least $20,000 in referrals to people who ask to buy edibles from me, because I cannot sell them to you, because I cannot risk missing my blessing, being partnered with the Cultivation Center, because there's rumors of me, selling, edibles illegally. Just the rumor is enough to like ruin your reputation. And especially if you're a color, people are watching you, and you don't get like a second chance. So if you're serious about it, there's like amazing opportunities. You just have to do the research and make sure you're connected with the right people, and, just be wary of like your actions and your words, and make sure that you have control over what your brand is and what you're trying to accomplish.
So a consistent theme to what you said was about people bringing you along, this notion of mentors, sponsors. Let's talk about that. I want to get some input from all of you on this notion, and talk to us about who it was who influenced you. Who were the people who were your sponsors, your mentors, your supporters? Miko, you want to start?
I do. So Titi and I didn't have mentors or sponsors in the traditional sense, but we actually did, and we tapped right into our family. And one of those mentors was right there all along, and it was our dad. Our dad came out of the civil rights era, so he understood the value of being free. He was blessed with 2 daughters, so he thought that arming us with being free in our minds was going to serve us well for the rest of our lives. He thought that being an entrepreneur was the way for his 2 girls. So just watching our dad groom us, our dad training our thought process, our dad talking to us about being in control of your destiny, I couldn't think of a better role model. He never got the title, he never got the credit for it all along, but what an incredible role model my father was. There was another role model we had right there in the house, and that was our grandmother. Miss Jessie Mae Branch. We ended up naming our product after her, Miss Jessie's. Miss Jessie was she played a really important role in that she was the first CEO we'd ever seen. She was actually the first female CEO we'd ever seen. My grandmother was a great delegator. She ruled our family from her kitchen table. And when you sat around Miss Jessie's, you had to help. Not only did you have to help, you had to be good at what you did while you were helping her. So we tapped into our grandmother and our father. Back to Miss Jessie. when it came time for us to be employers without formal training, because Titi and I did not go to business school. We didn't have the sophistication to approach people and ask them, would you please be our mentor? We did things as we went, and we tapped into what we knew. So Jesse Branch was a wonderful role model, and so was our father, Mr. Jimmy Branch.
Spencer, who are your role models and your mentors?
Same as her initially. I didn't have like official mentors. My father was never really in my life. My mother was a single parent of 4 at the age of 28, which is insane to me. I don't know how she did that. But she had to pretty much be the mother and the father. Her actions of what she did influenced me so much that I need a better life. I don't want that life that, you know, my mom struggled to try to give us. You know, she did the best she could, and that was great. But I told myself, when I get older, I don't want to struggle financially. That was my thing. I do not want to struggle financially. I want to prosper. I want to have children, and I want to be able to support my children to whatever they want to do financially. So I had my daughter, and I told myself, this is going to be my motivation right here. My daughter, like, she changed me. It wasn't instantly either. It took probably about a year and a half before I realized, like, she may not survive if I don't step my game up. So I told myself I need to be my own boss. I can't have somebody else dictate how much money I'm going to make, if I'm going to be employed, where the money's going to come from. So I told myself I need to fix that. And that's where Mr. Mars came from, was from that motivation of my daughter and my past life.
Thank you. And Jimmy?
The American dream is something very special, and I love what you just said. It's the American dream. Certainly, I have had a lot of mentors, and I've had a lot of sponsors throughout, and I just wrote down a few. So starting with my grandparents, who came to East St. Louis, Illinois with a third-grade education and made sure their 9 children not only finished high school, but went to college. And that was extremely important. And I can't say enough about my father, and I've spoken about him, but my mother, I haven't spoken about her. She taught for 45 years in the East St. Louis school system, and certainly allowed me to come home after the Navy and live with her and invest my money into McDonald's, and very important to me. I didn't say this to you, and it was extremely important. While I was in the Navy, a group of businessmen came to our squadron, and we took them out to the Harry S. Truman. They put something on the ship. I whispered to them that I wanted to be like them one day, and I got an interview with McDonald's Corporation that eventually led to me becoming an owner-operator. Well, the gentleman who did that is still alive today. He's in his early 90s, and I stay in touch with him. And he's not only a mentor, but he's a sponsor. So he's a big-time voice for me, too, no matter what. He's a big-time voice for me. So not only a mentor, but a sponsor. The owner-operators within the McDonald's system, it's often said that we're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And certainly, especially with one individual in particular, Dick Bowl, an amazing gentleman who's been in the McDonald's system for over 50 years. I constantly lean on him for information, how to do better, how to be better, etc. And then our vendors and suppliers, whether it's Coca-Cola, Craig Williams over at Coke, or Mark Wetterow, our distribution center. I'm constantly in touch with them on the business. You know, in the future, we're going to be next year with fresh beef, or any of the changes we're making with drinks, etc. And I stay in touch with them so I can stay on top of my game as a franchisee, as an owner-operator. And so I will tell you, all of these individuals just have a huge impact on me and how I interface, not only with McDonald's, but the business world.
Now, Jimmy, you use 2 terms, mentor and sponsor. Talk a little bit about the difference in those two, because I'm not sure that everyone understands.
Thank you for the opportunity with that. So a mentor is someone who can help you figure out a way forward, suggest things for you. In a way, it's very passive. And then you can have someone who's going to knock down the door for you. And so let's say you need that loan, and you're talking to that bank, and you're really not getting to a place where you want to get to. But maybe that sponsor can come in and be an active voice for you in that respect. Or let's say you want a McDonald's franchise, like Ralph Cordy. I met him, and not only did he say, Jimmy, I'm going to help you, but we wrote a letter, I wrote the letter to the CEO of McDonald's. I flew myself to Chicago, and he gave me a lot of information, a lot of input, day in and day out, on how to approach that meeting. Once I got the franchisee, a lot of information on how to sacrifice. Jimmy, you know what? Let's reinvest back into the unit. It requires not only you being a little bit smarter, it requires you sacrificing a little. And so each and every day he would be with me and working with me to make sure that I was a success. And so that's how I separate that term mentor and sponsor.
There's a woman by the name of Carla Harris. I don't know, maybe some of you would know who she is. She is a vice chairman at Morgan Stanley, one of the early women of color on Wall Street. And she speaks about this all the time, mentors and sponsors. And one of the things, and she has a book, so I encourage you all to look that up. It's a great book. But what she talked about was the fact that a sponsor is someone who's willing to use their political capital when you are not even around, when you are not even in the room,
Absolutely.
to have your back, basically. And they're the folks that are usually more senior. They're not the ones that you're going to every other day with your problems, with your issues. In fact, sometimes you don't even talk to your sponsor about your problems. But they're the ones that when they know that you want a particular opportunity, when they know that you want to meet a certain customer, that they will put you in touch with that customer, and they are willing to expend and use their own personal or political capital to make that happen. So a difference in the mentor and sponsors, and you have to make sure you use them correctly, right, to get the most out of the relationship.
Absolutely.
So questions. Anyone have any questions? Please hold your cards up. They'll collect them so we can get any questions answered in the 30 minutes that we have remaining. Let's see. I want to go now to job creation. Let's talk about that because that was a big priority of this session. And Congressman Payne is keenly interested in job creation. Talk about where you feel that the opportunities exist in your particular business. Jimmy, you've already talked about in terms of entry-level jobs and giving people the opportunity to just start working and to just learn how to work. And I know that at times, maybe some of you all have heard this, people telling the younger people about dead-end jobs or just working at McDonald's, and we say, hold it, wait a minute. Working at McDonald's is a great opportunity to learn. We would love everyone to go through that type of training.
Absolutely, and good point. So, with McDonald's, it's known to everyone that we're an entry job provider in many forms, in many fashions. But think about this for a second. McDonald's, multi-billion-dollar, $25 billion company, and what does it take to run a $25 billion company? Now, aside from me being a franchisee, what does it take to run this business? So as a franchisee, I need entry-level people, high school students, etc. And my job is to input a whole lot, and we try our best each and every day to do it. But McDonald's is a great place to start. It's also a great place to have a career. And so I have swing managers. I have managers. So at each store, I have a head manager at my store that is gainfully employed, makes a great salary. In addition to that, I have supervisors. And you know what? Their responsibility is immense. They have P&L responsibility. In addition to that, I have a DO, Director of Operations, President of my business. And his job is immense too because he's running the entire operation. He's the COO of my business. Now with the corporation, God, we have chefs, we have attorneys, we have accountants, the whole gamut. And many of these individuals, their first jobs were with McDonald's. My story is an example. So after college, I decided to become a naval officer. I decided to fly planes for the Navy. And now I run a significant business. I'm apart from McDonald's. I run a company called Estelle Foods Incorporated, doing business as McDonald's. And so again, it leads to that question, what do we want in society with our businesses? And the answer is we need it all. You need entry-level jobs, and you need other types of jobs. That's the way it is.
Victoria, talk to us about where the jobs are in the cannabis industry.
Well, I mean, it depends if you're talking about just DC or just in general.
Nope, in general, jobs in the industry. How do we get more jobs created in this up-and-coming industry?
Well, you have to just be very wary of like what are the laws in the state that you're operating in, so you can figure out if there's opportunities on the recreational side, or if there's opportunities on the medicinal side. I mean, like each state is completely different in, you know, like their regulations and their laws, and so it takes, you know, in figuring out, like for example, in the West Coast, for example, you know, there's a huge pushback on like larger cannabis companies because they use people of color as clickbait, right, in their articles or something like that. So you have an article that has like people of color as the, you know, as the lead photo, but then the article has nothing to do with any businesses or any people of color at all. And so like collectives that are like people that are like into marketing, for example, like my cousin has a company on the West Coast and she has a marketing collective, and basically, you know, dispensaries will reach out to her because they're interested in inclusion and they want to figure out almost like a diversity, like, you know, consultant on how to include more people of color, you know, in their business model.
But the fact remains that there is an opportunity for people, whether you are a marketing person,
Yes.
You're an accountant, whatever your core discipline, to do this with businesses and serve businesses that are in the cannabis industry, right?
Absolutely.
It's an up-and-coming
Absolutely. You just have to
area.
figure out your niche, you know, like like I said, I tripped and stumbled into this.
Right.
It was just because I saw a need and I saw that I could fulfill that need, and I thought that I could fulfill that need better than anybody else that was trying to do it could, and so I did it. That applies to any other state in the country with any other, you know, like if it's dispensaries or if it's a recreational shop or if it's doing like large-scale cannabis workshops and conventions or events,
Okay.
educating people about, you know, cannabis in whatever particular state you're interested in working in.
Terrific. And Spencer, how do you envision your business creating more jobs, and how are there more jobs, and where are the jobs in the culinary business
Just like
or in
James.
e-commerce?
Well, two aspects. The e-commerce, basically, I'm going through Amazon right now. That's my main source of getting my products out to everyone is through Amazon. And Amazon pretty much handles all that. They do all the hiring. The more vendors that they have on Amazon.com to sell, the more personnel that they have to hire. So that's going to just present more job opportunities in that aspect. When it comes to opening my own wing shop and my distribution facility, I have entry level for my wing shop, and I also have entry level and some experience when it comes to like my distribution, heavy lifting for forklifts and such things as that. But predominantly right now, it's just the e-commerce. It's just Amazon, pretty much. I build up my brand. The more customers I bring in, the more that Amazon has to work, the more employees they need, and it's just a snowball effect.
And so that is kind of the balance between small business and big business, where there's a very large business that you're utilizing as your back end. And there are many people that talk about the evils of big business, but that big business is actually enabling you on this side.
Yes,
So
yes,
as you
yes.
grow, they're growing, and it's a win-win for everyone, and more jobs are created.
That's correct.
Miko.
Yeah, so believe it or not, Miss Jesse's is still, we're a big business in one way, but in reality, we're still a small business. So some of the areas that we need help, we're always needing help in this area, is marketing. We need to continue to market our company, whether it be social media, whether it be on the product end. We always need financial help. An attorney we find legal help to be very, very useful in our business. We're constantly making deals, so being able to interpret and help us, give support in negotiations is always helpful to us. Sales, account reps, we have partnerships with large businesses. Some of the brokers tend to be very helpful in our business when it comes time to understanding our big partners. Brand ambassadors are also very important. Also our online business, helping people to build that out, that infrastructure. We try to keep our business contained, but as we know in business, it's ever-changing. People stay with you and then they move on. As our business develops and evolves, we find that we need new forms of help. So far, here's what our list currently looks like.
And in the industry overall, in personal care products, I mean, we've seen the explosion, right, of personal care products in general, especially products that are natural products and products for people of color. Can you talk a little bit about, again, where you see the largest growth in jobs in the industry overall as well?
Well, if you're not making your own product, for the industry, I believe that you're going to need people to further create products. So if there's someone manufacturing, you need help in that intellectual part of the business. For us, Miss Jessie's, we have a salon. So that's our R&D, that serves as our R&D. But we're still a small salon. For some of the larger companies who are making products for hair, skincare, and it goes on and on, I see that there being an opportunity for more jobs in that area. But I still go back to marketing because it's really about spreading the word. And then with that marketing, we're creating the demand, and then we're helping to build industries like the beauty industry in many different ways by just creating the desire to have more Miss Jessie's and natural hair care products for hair and skin.
Terrific. So I'd like to now just get some parting thoughts as we start to wrap up. And again, if anyone has any questions, a question right here, okay. So while we're waiting for that question to come up, if you all can start to think about what is it that you wish that you had known when you started your business, that you know today, what is it that you wish you had known when you started your business? And we're going to hear from each of you right after this question. Thank you. Okay, great. This is a great question. It's about succession planning. Now, many of you mentioned that you have children, and I know a lot of people think of succession planning in the sense of, passing the business on to their children. Oftentimes, businesses actually don't survive that transition process. What's the time that you should look into succession planning, and what are you all going to look for in that person who replaces you, whether or not it's your own child or someone from your family? Anyone want to take this question? Great. James, you want to talk about it?
Sure, I'll do it. So I think it all depends on how we look at succession planning. So certainly, I would love for my daughter or for my son to take over my business. Equally, I know that in a way, if Dr. Ben Davis were here, he would say that a son of his took over the business. Because remember, I said that I was a son of East St. Louis. And so me helping this young man, Roy Mosley, become a franchisee because he desperately wants to become a franchisee is a part of succession planning. Now, I also think it's incumbent upon me to do the best job I can to rear my son and to rear my daughter. And the chips fall where they may in that respect, because they may not want to come into the restaurant business. The restaurant business is an absolute grind. It is 7 days a week, it is 18 hours a day, and I'm not kidding. And so they may not want to do it. And if they don't want to do it, then hopefully I've done enough and I've reared them well enough so they can choose what they want to do in life. My father wanted me to be an attorney. He didn't want me to fly, and he didn't want me to go into the restaurant business. I decided I wanted to fly for the Navy, and I decided I wanted to be in the restaurant business. But the one thing he did was he trained me. And so at the end of the day, that's what I'm doing with my son. And I think that's generational wealth. And in a way, it has nothing to do about money. And in a way, it does, because we're in America. It's a capitalist society. But I want him to do where his passion leads him.
And, something else to think about when you think about succession planning and that thing of a family member, a son or daughter taking over a business. As Jimmy said, maybe that is not the highest and best use of their time, nor the best for the company. And at the end of the day, there's much of this that is about wealth creation, right? And and being able to extract the value that you've created in that business, and that wealth can then take your children, your family to the next level. So, something to think about, because so many of our businesses get started out of a need for self-employment. We're looking for a job, and I know my parents, when they started their company, said, we were starting our company, they had a newspaper business, so that our kids will never have to want for a job. They'll never have to look for a job. They can always have a job here. That is self-employment, and perpetual self-employment. It's not necessarily building wealth. So we just have to sometimes have a different mindset about how we think about the transference of assets and that company. Another question. Do you consider the need to open or maintain dispensaries? Let's see, I'm having a hard time reading this. Who's the one who asked the question? Okay, if you can maybe just stand up and ask the question.
Victoria, do you consider it a challenge to open and maintain lines of credit?
It confused me too. I didn't know what was going on.
So, considering the mandatory nature of the cannabis industry, do you consider it business itself to open and maintain lines of credit or just banking accounts with large banks? If so, other job opportunities to help navigate that.
So I'm a culinary company, right? My startup costs have been, we haven't had to do that yet. She can probably answer that question a little better than I can, as she has had to deal with lines of credit and et cetera, for dispensaries. For me, we've been self-financing. I mean, we have our startup costs, our food costs, and our own personal effort. We haven't had to cross that hurdle, and we're hoping we're not. We don't have to, as we all own kitchens or have access to commercial kitchen spaces, which is our biggest overhead, and packaging. But you could definitely connect with Shonda after this. She can for sure answer that question more thoroughly.
Next question. Jason Grove, where are you? You want to stand up? From the great city of Newark, so. Can you please ask your question?
New Jersey potentially, first of all, good afternoon. New Jersey potentially become a marijuana state. Consider marijuana policy. So my question is this: what are some of the must-have, must-do public policy language that cities like Newark must create to create inclusion for African Americans? And that is, I guess, a question to discuss. What has been done already to create inclusion? I know that industry-wide there may not be much, but since we have an opportunity to kind of get ahead of things in cities like Newark, what steps should we take, what language should we create to make sure that industry is used to Black people?
Don't do what Maryland did. I'm not sure about the Jersey application. I don't know where Jersey is right now in the medicinal marijuana, application process. But I know, Philadelphia, for example, they included language that highlighted diversity as one of the main components, or one of the grading components that were going to be used in evaluating who was going to be, given X, Y, Z license. This similar happened in Maryland, with the Legislative Black Caucus putting the certain language in, that verbiage, and it didn't pan out the way we all thought it was going to pan out. But it is demanding that inclusion and diversity be part of the grading criteria and the application criteria, and seeing what city officials, what that language is currently looking like, because it's already in motion, it's already going. So it's reaching out to the Black caucuses in that state and determining who is already, kind of getting things going with developing policy and making sure that, our narrative is included in that dialogue.
Follow-up question, my apologies. Is there a person that you recommend?
Her? Shonda.
All right, terrific. Well, that is a conversation for after the session after the session. You know, one of the things to consider there, though, and this is something in another session that I attended, but the fact that so many people are excluded or will be excluded from participating because of their prior record and their prior interaction, let's say, with cannabis. And so if there is a way to create some sort of opportunity for that to be forgiven or expunged so that they are able to participate in the actual money-making opportunities that exist, you know, that's definitely something to think about on the policy front. All right. Speak of commercial lines of credit, capital. Everything always comes back to capital. And we think it's really important, and it is. How did you all finance your businesses? Nika?
Titi and I created our own capital. It took us longer to build our business, but for many, many years, Titi and I reinvested any profits back in our business. How did we do it? We sacrificed. So we did things like share clothes. We did things like become roommates, forever roommates. In the 90s, when Titi and I were in our 20s, we didn't go to the party. We didn't buy red bottoms or Gucci bags. We invested every bit of money that we made from our business back into our business. And it required a lot of sacrifice. It was a slow build, but very quickly, after we understood we were able to finance our own business, we were able to make better decisions after our failures. So again, if you want to self-finance, it's slower, but when the big profits come in over time, they'll all belong to you. I understand that everyone, let me just back up. Titi and I went into business to be our own bosses. Ironically, we didn't go into business to make money. Yeah. And you really have to ask yourself when you go into business, what's important to you? And I can certainly understand other people going into business to make money. So that slow build, that slow grind may not be appealing for you. So poising yourself to get money, to get partners, makes a lot of sense if that's your plan of action. But for us, it was very important for us to be our own bosses. So becoming resourceful, sacrificing was part of the formula for us to create the money for our business. And certainly I was talented, Titi was talented, and together our partnership essentially ended up being our capital source.
Jimmy, I'm going to venture a guess that you had to have some outside capital to get your McDonald's franchises. Is that correct?
Absolutely not. So here's what occurred with me. Our stories are eerily similar in that I did have the opportunity to spend 8.5 years in the Navy, and I saved a whole lot of money. In fact, I lived on base the whole time that I was in the Navy. So I took those funds and I put them towards my first McDonald's, and I borrowed the rest. So McDonald's essentially wants 25% down on a store, and that allows you to go to our preferred banks and get lending. So to that end, every single dime I had to put into it. I put off getting married, I moved them home, and I lived with my mother, to the chagrin of my future wife. That's what I did. Certainly, to keep expanding, I had to do the same thing, and that's the reason why it took 8.5 years for me to get my business really going. And so the sacrifice that it takes to go into small business is huge, not just in terms of, and I mentioned earlier, professionally, going to work every day, but also personally, the sacrifices that you just said, I understand because I went through it. And even today, I have to make sacrifices. I just had a big expansion in my business, and I don't have 5 or 6 stores anymore, I have 18. But to do that, I have a whole lot on the line. And I know that I have to pay my employees, I have to pay the banks, et cetera, before I pay anyone else. And so sacrifice is necessary.
Jimmy, what are the types of capital that you have, outside capital? You have a bank loan, lines of credit, anything like that?
Absolutely. So I have, the bank loans. Each individual store stands on its own. And then I have a line of credit for each store. And it's very important to establish that line of credit when you're not in trouble. Because if you need those funds and you need those monies, you don't need to go to the bank and say, all of a sudden I need it because I'm in trouble. So I have a great line of credit with each store. And in the event that I get in trouble or in the event that I can't make payroll or et cetera, I have those funds available.
So the key there is to go and get it before you need it.
The line of credit is essential for any small business.
Terrific. Okay. With that, let's have our parting thoughts from each of our panelists. And Jimmy, why don't we actually start with you, and we'll come back down toward Miko. What you wish you had known then when you started that you know today, and share with our audience.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank everyone for the opportunity. Certainly, I've learned so much from the panelists. I think Senator Cory Booker's comments were amazing and are very appropriate. I'll say just very shortly that, I don't think you get do-overs in life. And I tell my son that every day, and certainly I'm going to say that to everyone today. The way that it went down. The sacrifices that I had to make. The mistakes that I made. And hopefully I've overcome them. And so I would say to you, and that question is a great question, that, you know what? Things went as they went. And I don't mind the struggle that I went through. And I'm looking forward to the future.
All right, great. Victoria.
Also, thank you, everyone, for sitting here and hearing us talk about our trials and tribulations for the last hour and a half. We're setting to launch this spring, so I can't, knock on wood, we're not talking about any failures with DC taste buds, but personally, I wish I had known that, people are people and business is business, and feelings aren't facts. And sometimes you will have great people that you think are fun and friendly, and they really have your back and X, Y, and Z, but they're not good people to do business with. And that was a hard lesson for me to learn, because I was like, oh, this person's so awesome. I don't understand. Why is he BSing with this, and this? Or, why is this taking so long? I thought we were on one accord. Just business is, it could be your friend, and it could be someone you respect. It could be an ally, but business is business, and it's completely different than any interpersonal relationship you have with that person. Things, things change, and you can't get mad about it because it's not personal. It's just business. And so I've had to maybe get a tougher exterior because I'm such a people person. And I always assume people's intentions are the best, and sometimes they're not, because people are concerned about their own businesses and their own livelihoods, and you have to watch out for yourself and be wary about the people around you and make sure that they also have, your best interests at heart, and just don't take things personally, because, people will let you down and they'll surprise you, but people also will bring you up and support you. So just be able to call a spade when time comes.
Great advice. Spencer.
Yes. My business is still new. I just hurdled over my first year. The things that I did learn in that first year was, for my sauces, the summertime is the time for sauces. That is the time, and it's insane. Sales just spike up dramatically, especially when major things happen, like Jeff Bezos tweeting about your sauce. You're going to ring the NASDAQ bell in New York to start the New York Stock Exchange. All those events that happens to me spikes up. I wasn't ready for that. When I first started the business, I told myself that my goal is to start the business, have a slow incline, steady, slowly but surely, but always an incline. And I was on that same path. My goal was not to have any loans or major loans. I already did the whole loan thing with, vehicle loans and school loans, and that's all paid off and great. So I told myself I want to do this all on my own finances, which I sold my vehicle, got a personal loan for my 401k, cashed out PTO at my job, those things. So basically, what I wish I knew, which I know now, is the great sales I was going to get during those holiday seasons. So I'm better prepared now. So next year, I won't be sold out for 2 weeks on Amazon. That hurt. So that's about it.
Well, business honestly made a woman out of me. Before I went into business, I was extremely immature, and I didn't really want to be accountable for much. Business has a way of making you square off with who you are. Business has a way of letting you know or making you know what you are and what you aren't. And if you stay the course, those lessons that you learn in business could really be beneficial to you in your personal life. Your decisions going forward, if you stay the course from the lessons that you learn in business, will make you a better business person. As an entrepreneur, it's very hard for me to separate business and personal, so I tend to benefit. I tend to use the benefits that I've learned from business, and I try to supplement myself personally with that. The other thing I wanted to share with you is an accountability. As a younger Miko, new to business, I was really afraid of the word no. No meant rejection, and I did everything I could to avoid the word no. But what I realized is that no is a wonderful word. It could be the best thing. The word no could be the best thing. So now, my relationship with no is a better one. Once I hear the word no, I know that there's no opportunity here. And now I can move on quickly to the next opportunity. It's a time saver. I find myself running towards my no's. I want to get to my no's quicker than my yeses now. And had I been a younger Miko, I spent so much time trying to avoid it. Had I had a chance to do it all over again, I would have been less fearful of the word no and the experience of no. Thank you.
Well, I've been in business and supporting entrepreneurs for a long time, and I have to tell you, even I learned some great, amazing things from this panel of entrepreneurs. So please, let's give them another round of applause. And everyone who comes to do this panel year after year, we really do it because we want to share and support you all. Our phone numbers were accessible. Our email addresses are accessible. We really hope that you all contact us, reach out. If there are things you want to know, reach out to get support and help. And it's interesting, a lot of times we do these things and we say this, no one ever calls. No one ever sends an email. And then people complain that their business isn't doing well. Use the resources. As Senator Booker said, use the resources that you have. We are here to be a resource to you. So please reach out. We hope that you leave here today and take action. Just take one little thing that each of the panelists said and do something. That's the only way your business is going to move forward, is if you take action and do something now. Don't put it off till later. Do it now. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and we hope to hear from you.
Can I just, in parting, I forgot one thing. My sister Titi and I decided in 2013 that we were going to become a resource. Although we were excellent at making curly pudding and excellent hairstylists, we understood that we were influencers, and we also needed to take that influence and share information. It came in the form of a book. My sister Titi and I decided to share our experience. So as a resource, learn our story, learn how we built our business from scratch. We stand before you as an example, and the message in this book is, if we can do it, you can do it too. Thank you.
Absolutely. You can do it. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.